If you think like everyone else, you will live like everyone else. But the moment you think like a grandmaster, every move you make turns into an unfair advantage. Today, I'm going to show you how entrepreneurs who dominate industries think, not in months, not in years, but moves ahead. There comes a moment in every entrepreneur's life when hustle, motivation, and ambition are no longer enough. You hit a ceiling, you feel stuck. You realize the game you're playing isn't the same game the winners are playing. And that's when everything changes, because the entrepreneurs who build empires don't think in straight lines. They don't think in weeks or quarters. They think like grandmasters, people who can see the entire board, predict outcomes, and create pressure where everyone else sees chaos. And if you stay with me until the end of this speech, I will give you the exact mental framework that separates the entrepreneur who survives from the entrepreneur who becomes inevitable. Not lucky, not gifted, inevitable. Most people only understand the move they're making. A grandmaster understands the consequences of the move before they even make it. That's the difference, that's the separator. That's what will make or break you. So pay close attention, because each of the 6 key principles I'll share today has the power to shift the entire way you operate, negotiate, innovate, and build. Miss one of them, and you'll never dominate the board you're trying to play on. Let's dive in. There's a fundamental difference between an entrepreneur who's constantly scrambling to keep up and an entrepreneur who seems to always be in the right place at the right time, making the right decision, capturing the right opportunity, and staying 3 steps ahead of everyone else. That difference comes down to one single trait: anticipation. The average entrepreneur reacts. The grandmaster entrepreneur anticipates. And the moment you understand this difference, not just intellectually but operationally, you start to see the entire game of business with new eyes. Most people wake up and respond to whatever is happening around them. Sales slow down, they react. Competitors change prices, they react. A new platform trends, they react. They live in a cycle of response, always dealing with the present moment, as if the present moment is the real problem. But grandmasters know the present moment is just the last stage of a chain reaction. Every event you're experiencing today was set into motion long before you noticed it. So if you're only reacting to events, you're already behind. You're fighting battles that have already been lost. And that's where most entrepreneurs stay stuck, not because they lack drive, but because they're playing the wrong game. A grandmaster entrepreneur looks at the world through the lens of patterns. They're not asking, what is happening? They're asking, what does this mean? They're not asking, what should I do today? They're asking, what will this decision create 3 moves from now? They think like a strategist. They think like someone who understands that every move has a ripple effect, and those ripples create the future you're about to live in. They're constantly mapping cause and effect, tracking the chain of consequences that every choice sets into motion. Most people underestimate how predictable human behavior is, how predictable industries are, how predictable disruption is. But a grandmaster studies these things. They study cycles, they study incentives, they study the psychology of customers, competitors, markets, and even their own team. They notice the early signs of change. They watch small indicators the way a chess master watches a hand shift over a pawn. They don't need a storm to hit before they take action. They see the clouds gathering long before everyone else looks up. And by the time the weather changes, they've already positioned themselves to benefit from it. This is why anticipation beats speed. You can hustle harder, you can run faster, you can work longer hours. None of that matters if you're running in the wrong direction. A grandmaster is not faster than you. They're earlier than you. They make moves when you're still thinking. They prepare when you're still comfortable. They secure the client while you're still crafting the pitch. They pivot before the market forces them to. They build defenses before threats appear. They prepare offensives before opportunities are obvious. Their power comes from being early, not lucky. Think about any major shift in business. The companies that dominate didn't get lucky. They anticipated the future the moment it started whispering. They saw consumer frustration before it became mainstream. They noticed behavioral shifts before the data confirmed it. They watched how people spent their time, not just their money. They studied inefficiencies and asked, who is accidentally creating an opportunity for me by not paying attention? They see weaknesses as openings, they see confusion as advantage, they see chaos as leverage, and most importantly, they refuse to let external events dictate their internal strategy. The entrepreneurs who lose are the ones who are always surprised. They're surprised when a competitor outpaces them. They're surprised when a new technology shows up. They're surprised when regulations change. They're surprised when a partner walks away. They're surprised when a customer base shifts. The truth is, none of these things arrive without warning. Business always signals its next move. The marketplace always leaves clues. People always reveal patterns. Technology always hints at the next leap. But only grandmasters pay attention to the tiny signals everyone else ignores. Anticipation requires controlling your emotions. Reaction is emotional. Anticipation is analytical. When you react out of fear, panic, excitement, or pressure, you stop thinking clearly. You make choices based on the present urgency, not the long-term outcome. Grandmasters train themselves to pause, observe, and understand before they move. They don't confuse noise with signals. They don't confuse movement with progress. They don't confuse activity with strategy. They know that reacting quickly is not a strength if your reaction is misaligned with the larger game. Another reason anticipation is so powerful, it builds confidence, not arrogance, confidence rooted in preparation. When you know the consequences of your moves before you make them, you stop doubting yourself. You stop hesitating. You stop second-guessing, you stop playing small, you move with intention, you move with clarity, you move with purpose. That's why grandmasters appear calm in chaos. They're not calm because the situation is easy. They're calm because they've already processed the scenario long before it arrived. They saw it coming, they prepared for it, they planned around it. And here's the part most entrepreneurs miss. Anticipation is a skill you can train. It's not a personality trait. It's not some natural, born instinct. It comes from observation, investigation, reflection, and repetition. The more data you feed your mind, the more patterns you see. The more mistakes you analyze, the fewer you repeat. The more you study winning companies and failing companies, the clearer the signs become. The more you practice long-term thinking, the less reactive you become. The more you understand people, the more predictable their decisions appear. Over time, your vision sharpens. The world slows down, the noise clears, patterns emerge, and suddenly you start seeing what others don't. Anticipation is what allows an entrepreneur to say no to an opportunity that looks good on the surface but leads nowhere. It allows them to say yes to something that looks small now, but becomes monumental later. It helps them resist distraction. It helps them resist panic. It helps them play the long game. It helps them create a future instead of inherit one. Anticipation turns an entrepreneur from a participant into an architect, from a follower into a strategist, from an operator into a commander. When you master anticipation, you stop chasing opportunities. You attract them. You stop reacting to problems, you neutralize them before they form. You stop fearing the future, you design it. That's the power of thinking like a grandmaster. There's a reason some entrepreneurs rise so quickly that people assume they had connections, came from money, or got some lucky break. Negocios, but if you study them closely, you'll notice something far more intentional happening behind the scenes. Before the world ever sees their success, before the media praises them, before competitors even know their name, they've already built invisible advantages that position them to win long before the game begins. These aren't flashy moves. These aren't loud announcements. These are quiet preparations that compound quietly until suddenly, from the outside, they look unstoppable. Most entrepreneurs wait until they need something before they start building it. They wait until business slows down before they start developing a new product. They wait until a problem hits before they look for expertise. They wait until their competition grows before they start strengthening their team. They wait until they are drowning before they look for a system. They wait, and this waiting becomes their downfall. A grandmaster entrepreneur does the opposite. They build advantages before the world requires them. They invest in skills before the opportunity appears. They cultivate relationships long before those relationships can help them. They develop systems before their business is big enough to need them. They build trust before they ask for anything. They gather resources before the battlefield forms. They prepare for growth before growth even arrives. And that's why they never look overwhelmed, because they never allow life to put them in a desperate position. Grandmasters understand a fundamental truth. When you're desperate, you have no leverage. Desperate entrepreneurs accept bad deals. They chase the wrong clients. They hire the wrong people. They rush into commitments. They compromise standards. They operate from fear instead of strategy. But when you have invisible advantages built long before you need them, you're never forced to operate from desperation. You move from choice, not from pressure. One of the biggest invisible advantages a grandmaster builds is relationships. Not surface-level networking, not small talk, not transactional connections. Real relationships built on value, trust, and consistency. While everyone else only reaches out when they need something, the grandmaster reaches out when they have something to give. They support people when they expect nothing in return. They invest in future alliances without knowing exactly when or how those alliances will matter. And years later, those seeds turn into opportunities that the average entrepreneur calls luck. The average entrepreneur says, "You're so lucky you know the right people." No, they spent years building connections that would eventually become assets. These connections are invisible to the outside world until they suddenly appear in the form of partnerships, investments, access, mentorship, introductions, and credibility. But the truth is, those advantages were built brick by brick long before anyone noticed. Another invisible advantage grandmasters build is knowledge. And not just basic knowledge or industry trends, deep, specialized, strategic understanding that positions them to capitalize when the market shifts. While most entrepreneurs stop learning the moment they feel comfortable, the grandmaster sees comfort as a warning sign. Comfort means stagnation. Comfort means vulnerability. Comfort means someone else is studying while you're relaxing. So grandmasters read, study, observe, test, and analyze endlessly. They understand customer psychology, market cycles, business models, negotiation dynamics, leadership principles, and operational systems. This knowledge accumulates quietly. It's not obvious, it's not loud, but it becomes a massive advantage when complexity hits. When the market shifts, the unprepared panic. The grandmaster adapts instantly because they already know the terrain. Their preparation gives them speed, and speed gives them dominance. Another invisible advantage is systems. Most entrepreneurs wait until their business becomes chaotic before they create order. They wait until they're overwhelmed before they build processes. They wait until things fall apart before they start documenting, delegating, automating. But grandmasters build systems when the company is still small, so that when scale arrives, they're already ready for it. They build hiring systems before they hire. They build onboarding systems before they need them. They build marketing frameworks before competitors emerge. They build operational structures before chaos can hit. They build financial discipline before revenue grows. And because they build early, growth becomes an accelerant, not a destroyer. This is how companies go from small to large quickly without falling apart. because the infrastructure was built quietly, long before it was necessary. Another invisible advantage grandmasters cultivate is emotional discipline. People underestimate how important emotional management is in business. The entrepreneur who can stay calm while others panic, who can think clearly under pressure, who can regulate impulses, who can endure uncertainty, that entrepreneur has a lifelong advantage. Emotional discipline is rarely celebrated because it's not visible, but it is one of the deepest sources of power. Markets fluctuate, people disappoint, competitors attack, problems erupt. If you can maintain internal stability while the external environment becomes chaotic, you outperform 99% of entrepreneurs who crumble under emotional weight. Grandmasters also build capital advantages long before opportunities appear. They save aggressively. They spend strategically. They avoid unnecessary lifestyle inflation. They maintain liquidity. They build a war chest. And when an opportunity appears, the company to buy, talent to hire, inventory to acquire, a competitor to outperform, they're ready. Meanwhile, the entrepreneur living month to month sees the same opportunity but can't act. They don't have the resources. And in business, the person who can act fastest wins. Another invisible advantage is reputation. A grandmaster protects their name because they know their name will one day open doors that money alone cannot. They operate with integrity because they understand the long-term power of trust. They deliver more than promised because they understand the compound effect of being known as someone reliable. They treat people with respect because they know respect returns in unexpected ways. Reputation is invisible until the moment you need it, and then it becomes priceless. But the greatest invisible advantage of all is vision, not vague goals, not motivational slogans. Clear, structured, strategic vision. Grandmasters don't build based on what they need today. They build based on who they want to become tomorrow. They're not thinking about the next month. They're thinking about the next decade, and because their vision is long-term, their decisions are long-term. They resist short-term temptations. They avoid shortcuts. They build with intention. And over time, those intentional decisions create an unstoppable momentum that becomes very visible to the outside world, but started as invisible preparation. When people finally see the success of a grandmaster entrepreneur, they say things like, "Where did this person come from?" They think the rise was sudden. They think the growth was overnight. But every overnight success is built on years of invisible preparation. Every public victory is built on private discipline. Every powerful move is built on countless unseen moves made quietly, consistently, long before anyone paid attention. This is why grandmasters win, because they prepare when others relax. They build when others procrastinate. They anticipate when others ignore. They invest when others hesitate. And by the time the world realizes what they've been doing, it's already too late to compete with them.